2 months after their first big victory, the humans had taken back much of Korea. Paradox fields protected cities and farms. Inside these safe zones, old technologies began to work again as Taehyun found ways to shield them from the alien signals. The resistance needed more room for all the people escaping the protection zones. They decided to dig deeper under their main base in Daejeon. Do-hyun watched as workers used old-style digging machines to make new tunnels. Suddenly, one of the machines broke through a wall and stopped. "Captain, you need to see this," called the worker. Do-hyun climbed down into the new hole. His flashlight showed a large open space beyond the broken wall. It was a room, but not made by human hands. The walls were smooth and had a soft glow. "Get Ju-woo," he said to a nearby soldier. "Right away." Soon Ju-woo, Myung, and Taehyun joined him at the strange wall. "This is not natural," said Ju-woo, touching the glowing surface. "And it's not human-made either." They carefully walked into the room. It was huge, bigger than a subway station. Strange machines lined the walls. In the center stood a circle of tall stones, each covered with the same symbols they had found on the underwater door. "This place is old," said Ju-woo. She pointed to dust and broken parts. "Maybe 50,000 years old, based on these layers of rock." "That's before humans built cities," said Myung. "Before we had writing." Taehyun examined one of the machines. These looked like more advanced versions of the paradox weapons. Do-hyun picked up a small round object from the floor. It lit up in his hand, showing a 3D image of Earth from space. "Look at this," said Myung, pointing to a flat stone table. On it were hundreds of small objects like data storage devices. Each one had a different symbol. Ju studied the symbols. I think these are records, a library." She carefully took one and placed it in a slot on the table. The air above the table changed, showing images and strange writing. "Can you read it?" asked Do-hyun. "Parts of it," said Ju-woo. "The language has some connections to very early human writing. Give me time." For hours, Ju-woo worked with the strange records. The others explored more of the underground complex. They found rooms with more machines, sleeping areas, and what looked like science labs. Finally, Ju-woo called them back to the main room. Her face was pale. "I know who built this place," she said. "They called themselves the Shapers. They lived on Earth long before humans." "What happened to them?" asked Myung. "They faced an enemy from space, probably the Devourers that the Viridian mentioned. The Shapers fought but knew they would lose, so they made a plan for the future." Ju-woo pointed to more images on the table. They showed strange creatures working with DNA and cells. "The Shapers changed early humans," she said. "They added something to our ancestors, something that would grow over time." "What did they add?" asked Do-hyun, though he was afraid he knew the answer. "The ability to use the paradox weapons," said Ju-woo. "And more, the ability to think in ways that the enemy couldn't understand. The Shapers believed that logic and reason were good for building things, but imagination and creativity were needed for the kind of fighting that was coming." "So they changed our brains?" asked Taehyun. "Yes, they made us more creative, more able to think in ways that don't follow strict logic, ways that would seem random or crazy to very logical beings." Myung thought about this. "That's why we can use the paradox weapons better than the aliens. Our minds are already a bit like the weapons. We don't always follow the expected rules. And that's why the weapons make us smarter but confuse the aliens," added Do-hyun. "The fields increase whatever the Shapers put in our brains." "There's more," said Ju-woo. She showed them another record. "The Shapers left a message for us. They called humans their successors, the ones who would continue their fight if the enemy ever returned." Do-hyun looked around the ancient room. "They built all this, changed our ancestors, and left these weapons, just for us to find someday." "Yes," said Ju-woo. "The record says, 'We die, but you will rise. Our fight becomes your fight.' The enemy thinks in straight lines. You must think in circles. As they stood there, surrounded by the legacy of a long-dead race, Do-Yun felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Then we won't let them down, he said. We'll use every strange idea, every impossible weapon, every trick that doesn't make sense. That's how humans will win, by doing what shouldn't be possible. News of the Shaper discovery spread through the human resistance. People looked at the paradox weapons with new eyes. These were not just tools, they were humanity's birthright, made for them by ancient guardians. In the weeks that followed, Tae-hyun made an important breakthrough. He found a way to combine multiple paradox weapons to create an even larger field. Watch this, he told Do-Yun and the others. In a test area, he placed 4 weapons in a square pattern. When he turned them on together, the purple fields merged into one giant bubble. With enough weapons, we could cover an entire city, said Tae-hyun. Maybe even larger areas. Ma-young had been studying the Shaper records. I found something too, she said. Instructions for making the weapons work better with humans. She showed them how to adjust the weapons to strengthen the connection between human minds and the paradox fields. When they tried it, the effect was amazing. Inside the field, humans could share thoughts, work together like one mind, and come up with ideas that no one person could think of alone. It's time, said Do-Yun. Time to take back our world. They made a bold plan. Resistance groups around the world would attack Viridian control centers at the same time. Each group had at least one paradox weapon. They would create safe zones where human technology worked and alien tech failed. The day of the attack came. All across Earth, humans moved against alien targets. In Korea, Do-Yun led the biggest mission, to take back Seoul and capture the Viridian flagship that floated above the city. Remember, he told his fighters, inside the paradox field, we have the advantage. They get confused. We get smarter. Use simple weapons and trust your instincts. They activated 30 paradox weapons around Seoul. The purple field covered the entire city like a dome. Inside, the air shimmered and colors looked brighter. The effect on the aliens was immediate. Their floating vehicles fell from the sky. Their energy weapons stopped working. The aliens themselves stumbled around, unable to think clearly. Even the massive flagship, a ship as big as a small town, was affected. It drifted lower, its engine sputtering. Now's our chance, said Do-Yun. We need to get on that ship. Tae-hyun had prepared special rockets with grappling hooks. The humans fired these at the ship and began to climb up long cables. Inside the flagship, chaos ruled. Alien crew members moved slowly, bumping into walls. Their advanced computers showed only static. The humans moved through the ship easily, using bows, spears, and simple guns. Do-Yun led a small team to the bridge. There, they found High Commander Xelith sitting in a floating chair. Unlike the other aliens, Xelith seemed less affected by the paradox field. You, said Xelith, standing up. How is this possible? Your species was rated as minimal threat. Your technology is primitive. Maybe you should have looked deeper, said Do-Yun. Humans are full of surprises. Xelith made a sound like bitter laughter. You don't understand what you're doing. You think this is about your little planet. This is about survival. The Devourers have destroyed 1,000 worlds more advanced than yours. Tell us about the Devourers, said Ma-young, who had joined them on the bridge. Xelith looked at her with all 4 eyes. They seek perfect order. They eliminate any species that creates technology beyond certain limits. We have been running from them for generations. And you recognized the paradox weapons when you scanned Earth, said Do-Yun. It wasn't a question. Yes, admitted Xelith. We detected energy signatures that matched old stories from our history. Weapons that should not exist. Weapons that break the rules of physics. The only weapons that ever drove back the Devourers. So you invaded us because you were afraid of our weapons? Asked Ma-young. We invaded you because we needed your planet and your bodies, said Xelith. But yes, we feared what you might become if you mastered those weapons. And it seems we were right to fear. Around the world, similar scenes played out. Humans retook major cities and captured alien ships and bases. For the first time since the invasion began, victory seemed possible. On the flagship's bridge, Do-hyun made a decision. "Take me to your communication system," he told Seleth. "It's time to talk to your leaders." "What will you say?" asked the alien. Do-hyun looked at the map of Earth on the bridge screen. Green dots showed where paradox fields now protected human territories. The fields were spreading, connecting, growing stronger. "I'll tell them that the age of hiding is over," said Do-hyun. "It's time to stand and fight." 3 days after the capture of the Viridian flagship, leaders from both sides met in the ancient Shaper chamber beneath Daejin. On one side stood Do-hyun, Myung, Taehyun, and Ju-woo. On the other stood Seleth and 3 other high-ranking Viridians. Between them, a paradox weapon created a small field that allowed both groups to think clearly yet prevented any technology from working. This was neutral ground. "Our council accepts your victory," said Seleth. "We underestimated humans. A mistake we will not make again." "We want more than just words," said Do-hyun. "All human prisoners must be freed. All protection zones must be opened. Your ships must leave Earth orbit." Seleth's skin rippled with colors, showing strong emotion. "And if we agree, what then? Will you use your weapons against us as we leave? Will you follow us into space?" "No," said Myung. "We want peace, but we also want answers." Over the next hours, the truth emerged. The Viridians shared their history, how the Devourers had destroyed their original homeworlds, forcing them to become space nomads. For thousands of years, they had searched for a safe place to live. "When we found Earth, we detected traces of Shaper technology," explained Seleth. "We knew what it meant. The Shapers fought the Devourers long ago and created weapons that worked in ways the Devourers could not understand." "The paradox weapons," said Taehyun. "Yes, and we found humans. A species that thinks like the weapons work. Unpredictable. Creative. Able to see patterns that make no logical sense." Seleth's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "You were dangerous to us, but you might be essential against the Devourers." Myung had been studying the physics of the weapons. Now she explained her discovery to everyone. "The paradox weapons don't just change normal physics," she said. "They temporarily bring the rules of another universe into our own. A universe where mind and matter are more closely connected, where thought affects reality directly. In that alternate physics, human brains work better," added Taehyun. "But alien minds, evolved for perfect logic, can't function well there." Ju-woo showed translations from the Shaper records. The Shapers believed that consciousness itself was the key. They called it the ultimate weapon, the ability to imagine things that don't exist yet and then make them real. As night fell, the 2 sides reached an agreement. The Viridians would withdraw from Earth but remain in the solar system as allies. Humans would keep the paradox weapons as protection. Together, they would prepare for the possibility that the Devourers might someday find them. "There is one more thing you should see," said Seleth. The alien handed Do-hyun a small device. "This shows the galaxy as it is now." The device projected a 3D map of the Milky Way. Red areas marked where the Devourers had been active. Nearly a third of the galaxy glowed red. "They're coming this way," said Seleth. "Not today, not tomorrow, but someday." Do-hyun looked at his team, then back at the aliens. "Then we'll be ready, humans and Viridians working together." In the weeks that followed, the world began to heal. Viridian ships left Earth's orbit. The protection zones opened, reuniting families. Humans rebuilt their cities, now protected by paradox fields. New agreements were made. The Viridians would teach humans about space travel and advanced medicine. Humans would teach the Viridians about creativity, art, and how to think in new ways. Most importantly, joint teams studied the paradox weapons, trying to understand the strange physics they created. If the Devourers came, They would face not just one species, but two working together, one with advanced technology, the other with weapons that shouldn't exist. 6 months after the invasion began, Do-yun stood with Mayung on a hillside outside Seoul. The city lights glowed in the night. Above, stars shined bright. Some of those lights were Viridian ships, now friendly visitors instead of invaders. "Do you think we'll ever fully understand the weapons?" asked Do-yun. Mayung smiled. "Maybe not. Maybe that's the point. The Shapers made weapons that worked like human minds, full of contradictions and impossible ideas. And that's our strength," said Do-yun. "Not our technology, but our way of thinking, our ability to imagine the impossible." He looked up at the stars, where someday a new enemy might come. But this time, Earth would not be caught unprepared. This time, humans would stand ready with weapons that shouldn't exist and minds that could imagine the unimaginable. They were humanity, imperfect, illogical, and exactly what the universe needed. The city of Daejeon was half empty now. Many people had gone to the alien protection zones. Others hid in old buildings, away from alien eyes. Mayung set up her work in the basement of an old university building. The room was filled with books, papers, and parts of the paradox weapon. She had been studying it for 2 weeks. "I still don't understand how it works," she said to Do-yun. "It's like it creates a bubble where our universe's rules don't apply." Do-yun watched her work. "Can we make the bubble bigger?" "Maybe," she said. "But first we need to understand what's happening inside it." The door opened. A woman walked in carrying heavy books. This was Ju Han, a historian who studied ancient civilizations. "I found something," Ju said, putting the books on the table. "Stories from all over the world. They're thousands of years old, but they all talk about the same thing." She opened a book with very old pages. It showed cave paintings of circles that looked like the paradox weapons. Above the circles were drawings of strange ships in the sky. "These stories come from different places. Korea, Egypt, Peru, Australia," said Ju. "But they all talk about visitors from the sky who were defeated by rings of changing air." "The paradox weapons," said Mayung. "They've been used before." "Yes," said Ju. "And there's more. The stories say the weapons were gifts from those who came before, some older race that lived on Earth before humans." Do-yun felt a chill. "Are you saying we're not the first intelligent life on Earth?" "Maybe not," said Ju. "And the most interesting part is where the weapons were hidden. One of the biggest sites is under the East Sea." Tae-hyun joined them later that day. He had been testing the weapons. "I found something strange," he said. "The paradox field doesn't just stop alien tech from working. It also makes them confused. They can't think clearly inside the field." "But it doesn't affect us the same way?" asked Do-yun. "No. We get headaches, but we can still think and fight," said Tae-hyun. Mayung looked excited. "This is a huge advantage. We need to get more weapons." Do-yun made a decision. "Ju, can you guide us to the underwater site?" "Yes. I have the old maps." "Then we go tomorrow," said Do-yun. "We need more weapons if we're going to fight back." The next night, they traveled to the coast. They found an old fishing boat that still worked because it had a simple engine with no computer parts. As they sailed out to sea, they saw alien ships in the distance. The ships were taking water from the ocean with long tubes, like giant straws. "What are they doing?" asked Ju. "Taking resources," said Mayung. "Water, metals, everything they can use." They reached the spot Ju had marked on her map. It was far from shore, in deep water. "How do we get down there?" asked Do-yun. Tae-hyun smiled and held up a small version of the paradox weapon. "I modified this one. When I turn it on, it should create a dry path to the bottom." He turned on the device and pointed it at the water. The sea began to part, like in an old religious story. A tunnel formed in the water, going straight down to the seabed. "The field changes how water behaves," explained Tatian. Inside the field, water acts like a solid wall instead of a liquid. They walked down the tunnel of solid water. At the bottom, they found what looked like a door in the rock of the seabed. Strange symbols covered the door. Ju studied the symbols. This writing is not human, but some symbols match those from the ancient stories. She pressed certain symbols in a pattern. The door slid open with a hiss of air. Inside was a large room filled with dust, and in the center stood dozens of paradox weapons, larger than the ones they had made. "We just found our armory," said Doyan. As they gathered the weapons, Mayang noticed something on a far wall, a painting or a map. It showed Earth and terrible ships around it. But the ships were not like the Viridian ones. These were somehow worse. "I don't think the Viridians are the enemy the ancients were preparing us for," she said quietly. "I think something worse is coming." 1 month after finding the underwater weapons, the humans were ready to fight back. They had 12 working paradox weapons. Each one was about the size of a backpack, with a metal ring on the front that glowed with soft purple light. They gathered in an old train tunnel under Seoul. 20 soldiers joined them, people who had escaped the protection zones and wanted to fight. Captain Doyan spread a map on a wooden table. "Our target is here," he said, pointing to Jeju Island. "The aliens have built a control center on the south side of the island. It manages their ships for this whole region." Mayang stepped forward. "We know 3 important things now. 1, their technology doesn't work in our paradox fields. 2, they get confused inside the fields while we can still think. 3, the fields can be made bigger if we use more power." "What's the plan?" asked one of the soldiers. "We go in quiet," said Doyan. "Get close to their center. Then turn on the weapons all at once. When their systems fail, we move in." That night, they used 2 fishing boats to reach Jeju Island. The alien ships rarely checked the water, focusing instead on the skies and land. They reached the rocky shore just before dawn. The alien building looked like a smooth silver dome. No doors were visible. Guards with floating platforms patrolled the area. "Those platforms use gravity tech," whispered Tatian. "They'll drop like rocks when the fields turn on." They split into 4 teams, each carrying a paradox weapon. They moved through the trees until they surrounded the dome. "On my mark," said Doyan through an old radio. 3, 2, 1, now." All 4 teams turned on their weapons at the same time. The air around the dome seemed to bend and twist. Colors shifted. A high-pitched sound filled the air. The effect was immediate. The alien guards fell as their platforms stopped working. The dome's smooth surface flickered and parts of it became transparent, revealing the inside. "Move in," shouted Doyan. The humans rushed forward. The aliens inside the dome were confused. They moved slowly, like they were drunk. Their weapons, guns that shot beams of energy, were dead in their hands. The humans carried simple weapons, bows and arrows, spears, and some old guns that had no electronic parts. Inside the paradox fields, these simple weapons worked perfectly. The battle was quick. The humans captured the control center without losing anyone. They found alien computers filled with information and maps of their operations on Earth. Most important, they captured an alien officer alive. It had blue-green skin and 4 eyes that blinked sideways. Mayang tried to talk to it using words she had learned from studying alien messages. At first, it wouldn't speak. Then Taeyun adjusted the paradox weapon, making the field weaker around the alien. "Why did you come to Earth?" asked Mayang. The alien's voice was like stones rubbing together. "Resources. New home." "But why attack us? We could have shared," said Doyan. The alien made a sound like laughter. "Sharing is inefficient. Taking is better." "There's more," said Mayang. "Tell us the real reason you came here." The alien was quiet for a long time. Then it spoke again, its voice lower. "We run. We hide." "Run from what?" asked Doyan. "The Devourers," said the alien. They destroy all advanced worlds. They have followed us for 1,000 years, eating our colonies, our planets. The alien pointed to the night sky through a window. They will find us here too. Soon. Is that why you took our world? To hide? Asked Mayang. Yes, and to use you. Human bodies can work in places our machines cannot reach. You would serve us, help us fight them when they come. Dohyun looked at the others. Do these devourers look like the ships in the ancient painting? Juwoo nodded. Very similar. Then we're caught between two enemies, said Taehyun. The Viridians who are here now, and these devourers who might be coming. First things first, said Dohyun, standing taller. We take back our world. Then we decide if we help the aliens who try to enslave us. The captured alien watched them with its 4 eyes. You cannot win. Our ships will destroy this island when they find out what happened. Mayang smiled. That's why we're taking your communication system. They won't know until we've hit 3 more targets. For the first time in months, the humans felt hope. Their weapons shouldn't exist, shouldn't work according to science. But they did work, and now humanity had a fighting chance. 3 weeks passed since the aliens came. The world changed fast. High Commander Xelith and his team met with world leaders every day. They showed amazing things. Small silver boxes that could clean polluted water in seconds. Thin patches that could heal wounds overnight. Tiny pills that could make sick people healthy again. This is just the beginning. Xelith told the United Nations, soon we can help you build ships like ours. Your people can travel to the stars. People around the world celebrated. News shows talked about the new golden age. Children drew pictures of the beautiful alien ships. But Captain Dohyun Kim still felt uneasy. He watched as Xelith charmed everyone. They're giving us too much, too fast. He told Mayang as they walked through a park in Seoul. Alien ships floated silently above the city. Why would they share so much with strangers? Mayang nodded. I've been watching their data transfers. They download 10 times more information from our systems than they share with us. That evening, Dohyun led the aliens on a tour of Seoul's famous night markets. The crowds cheered as Xelith walked by. The alien smiled and waved like a movie star. While everyone watched Xelith, Mayang slipped away. She found a quiet corner and pulled out a special device. It could detect alien transmissions. She had built it based on what she learned about their technology. A red light blinked on her screen. A hidden transmission was happening right now. She captured it and began to decode it. Her hand shook as she read the message. Asterisk planet assessment complete. Resources exceed estimates. Native species shows minimal resistance capability. Recommend immediate establishment of 7 primary colonies. Begin preparation for full terraforming within 1 Earth year. Resistance calculations. 98.7% of population can be processed without significant military deployment. Asterisk. Mayang felt cold all over. She took pictures of the data with her phone, then hurried back to find Dohyun. Far away, deep under Baekdu Mountain, engineer Taehyun Choi worked alone in a secret lab. The room was built inside a cave, with walls of solid rock. No signals could get in or out. Taehyun stood in front of a strange machine. It looked like a metal ring about 1 meter wide. Inside the ring, the air seemed to bend and twist, like looking through moving water. Power at 60%, he said to himself, writing notes on a clipboard. Field stability improved by 15% from yesterday. On the wall hung an old photo from an archaeological dig. It showed the same ring, half buried in ancient stone. The dig site was more than 20,000 years old, older than human civilization. Taehyun's phone rang. It was Mayang. How soon can it be ready? She asked without saying hello. The prototype works for about 10 minutes before overheating, Taehyun said. But we don't fully understand how it works. The physics makes no sense. Make more, said Mayang. As many as you can. They're not here to help us. I knew it, said Taehyun. How long do we have? Based on the transmission I found, less than a year. Maybe only months. That night, Captain Doyen hosted a dinner for the aliens in Seoul's tallest building. Zelith gave a beautiful speech about friendship between worlds. As everyone clapped, Doyen's phone buzzed. A message from Mayang. Asterisk confirmed. They plan to take Earth. You need to see what Taehyun has built. It's impossible. It shouldn't exist. But it might save us all. Asterisk. Doyen smiled at Selith across the table. The alien smiled back, not knowing the humans had already started to prepare. The message came on a Tuesday morning. It bounced from deep space to Earth's biggest radio dishes. No one was ready for it. Captain Doyen Kim was eating breakfast when his phone rang. The voice on the other end spoke quickly. Captain Kim, you need to come to headquarters now. It's happening. Doyen didn't ask questions. He grabbed his uniform jacket and left his apartment. Outside, the streets of Seoul looked normal. People walked to work. Cars moved slowly in traffic. No one knew yet. At Korean Space Command, everyone moved quickly. Screens showed the same thing. A signal pattern that repeated over and over. It's definitely not from Earth, said General Lee. And it's not random. It's a message. Doyen looked at the pattern. Have we translated it? Working on it now, said a young woman sitting at a computer. This was Myung Park, the best code breaker in Asia. Her fingers moved fast over the keyboard. Hours passed. World leaders joined a video call. Everyone waited as Myung worked. I have it, she finally said. The room went quiet. They call themselves the Viridian Collective. 7 alien species working together. They say they come in peace. On the main screen, the message appeared in Korean. Asterisk, people of Earth, we have watched your world for many years. You have reached a level where we can now meet. We will arrive in 7 days. We bring friendship and knowledge. Prepare to meet us. Asterisk. The room exploded with voices. Captain Kim, said General Lee. You are now Earth's representative. The world leaders have agreed. You will meet these aliens first. Doyen felt the weight of this task. The fate of humanity might depend on his words. Later, alone in a quiet room, Doyen found Myung still working. Something doesn't feel right, she said without looking up. What do you mean? Asked Doyen. The way they talk, the pattern of their message, it's too perfect. Like they studied exactly how to make us trust them. She pointed to her screen. See these parts of their code? They hide something. Doyen trusted Myung's instincts. What should we do? Meet them as planned. But I'm activating Project Thunderbolt. Doyen's eyes widened. That's just a theory. We don't even know if it works. We might need it, said Myung. Just in case. 7 days later, the ships arrived. They appeared suddenly above every major city on Earth. They made no sound. They simply appeared, as if they had always been there. The ships were beautiful. They glowed with soft blue light. They seemed to float without any engines. Sometimes they became almost invisible, then solid again. From his position on top of Seoul Tower, Do-hyun watched the largest ship open. A bridge of light connected it to the tower. The aliens were coming. Remember, said Myung in his earpiece, smile, be friendly, but watch everything they do. As the first alien walked across the light bridge, Do-hyun stood tall. The alien looked almost human, but with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. It wore no space suit. It breathed Earth's air easily. I am High Commander Zelith, it said in perfect Korean. We bring gifts of knowledge and peace. Behind Do-hyun, Myung typed a quick command on her hidden tablet. Far below the mountains outside Seoul, machines started to work. Project Thunderbolt was now active. The weapons that shouldn't exist were waking up. The attack came without warning. It happened at exactly noon, all over the world at the same time. First, all screens went dark. Phones stopped working. Cars shut down in the middle of roads. Planes lost power, but somehow floated gently to the ground, caught by invisible alien forces. Captain Do-yun was in his office when it happened. The lights went out. His computer died. Even his watch stopped. "It started," he whispered. He had prepared for this day. Under his desk was a box with old tools, a compass, paper maps, and a radio that was so old it had tubes instead of computer chips. He grabbed the box and ran. Outside, people filled the streets of Seoul. They looked at the silent buildings and dead cars. Above them, the alien ships now glowed red instead of blue. A loud voice boomed from the ships. It was Seleth. "People of Earth, the transition begins today. Please stay calm and follow instructions. Each city will have a protection zone where you will be safe. Those who go to these zones will receive food and care. Those who resist will not be harmed, but will not receive help." Big sections of each city began to glow with green light. These were the protection zones. "They want to gather us in one place," Do-yun said to himself, "like farmers putting animals in pens." Do-yun found Myung hiding in the basement of an old library. She had set up equipment that still worked. "How do you have power?" he asked. "Old generators that aren't connected to any networks," she said. "The aliens used an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, to disable our technology. But they made a mistake." She showed him her screen. "They left some communication channels open so they could listen to our emergency calls. They want to hear us panic, but we can use these same channels to talk to each other." Myung had already contacted other people who didn't trust the aliens. Small groups in many cities were avoiding the protection zones. "We need to get to Taeyun," said Do-yun. "Is his lab still safe?" "Yes. It's so deep underground that the EMP didn't reach it, and he has something to show us." It took them 3 days to travel to Baekdu Mountain. They walked at night and hid during the day. They saw alien ships taking things from the empty cities, metals, water, and strange rocks that humans had never noticed. When they finally reached the hidden entrance to Taeyun's lab, they were tired and hungry. "You made it," Taeyun said when he opened the heavy door. "Come see what we've done." The lab was full of activity. 20 engineers worked on copies of the strange ring device. "We have 5 working units now," said Taeyun. "We call them paradox weapons because they do things that should be impossible." He led them to a test room with thick walls. Inside was one of the metal rings connected to power cables. "Watch," said Taeyun. He turned on the device. The air inside the ring began to twist and bend. Colors changed. The metal table inside the ring area suddenly fell apart, as if its atoms forgot how to hold together. "The ring creates a field where physics works differently," explained Taeyun. "We think this is why it was buried by ancient people. It was too dangerous to use, except in the worst emergency." "And what happens to alien technology in this field?" asked Do-yun. Taeyun smiled. "Let's find out. We captured a piece of alien equipment yesterday." He placed a small alien device inside the field. It immediately stopped glowing and fell to the floor dead. "Their technology doesn't work in the field," said Myung with growing excitement. "This could change everything." "Yes," said Taeyun. "They have better ships, better weapons, better shields. But we have something they don't understand, something that breaks the rules of their world." Do-yun picked up one of the smaller paradox weapons. It fit in his hand like a flashlight. "Time to take back our planet," he said. "One piece at a time." News of the Jeju Island victory spread fast among the humans. Using the aliens' own communication system, Myung sent coded messages to resistance groups around the world. More people escaped from the protection zones every day. The fight for Earth had truly begun. 2 weeks after the Jeju attack, Taeyun made a breakthrough with the paradox weapons. "Look at this," he said to Do-yun and Myung in their new base under Daejin. He turned on one of the weapons, but this time the purple field stretched much wider than before. "How did you do that?" asked Do-yun, walking through the field. The air felt thick, like moving through water. I changed the power flow, explained Taeyeon. Now one weapon can cover a space as big as a soccer field. This changes everything, said Mayang. We can protect whole areas now. But the Viridians had noticed the human attacks. That evening, the sky turned red above Seoul. 20 alien ships formed a circle high in the air. They're going to attack the city, said Ju-woo, watching through binoculars from their hillside position. Beams of bright light shot down from the ships. Buildings exploded. Fires began across Seoul. Even in the protection zones, where many humans still lived, the attack continued. They're punishing everyone, said Do-yeon in horror, even the people who didn't fight back. The attack lasted for hours. When it ended, half of Seoul was destroyed. The same thing happened in cities all over the world. That night, Seleth's voice boomed from all the ships. Humans who resist will be removed. Those who surrender will live. You have 3 days to return all stolen alien property. After that, we will remove all human settlements outside protection zones. The resistance leaders met in their underground base. Many wanted to give up now. We can't fight their ships, said one woman. They're too high up. Our weapons can't reach them. Maybe we can, said Mayang. During the meeting, she had been very quiet, thinking hard. During the battle on Jeju Island, I noticed something strange. When I was inside the paradox field, I could think faster. I had better ideas. Like my brain worked better somehow. I felt that too, said Ju-woo. Like I could remember things I'd forgotten years ago. And the aliens get confused in the field, added Taeyeon. What if the weapons don't just change physics? What if they change how our minds work too? Do-yeon looked thoughtful. So in the paradox field, humans get smarter but aliens get confused. Exactly, said Mayang, and I have an idea to use that. The next day, they prepared for the biggest mission yet. They would defend what remained of the Korean peninsula from the alien ships. The plan has 3 parts, Do-yeon told the fighters. First, we place paradox weapons in a big circle around our area. Second, we turn them all on at once to create a huge field. Third, we use special teams to attack any ships that come close to the ground. Taeyeon had built simple rocket launchers that worked inside the paradox fields. They couldn't reach the high ships, but they could hit ships that came lower. When the aliens attacked the next day, something unexpected happened. As soon as the giant paradox field turned on, covering many square miles, the humans inside felt a strange change. I can see the patterns in their attack, said Mayang, drawing quickly on a map. They always followed the same 5 steps. We can use that. Around her, other humans reported the same thing. They could think faster, see patterns, find solutions they never would have imagined before. Meanwhile, the alien ships that entered the field began to fly erratically. Some crashed into each other. Others landed roughly, unable to stay in the air. Now, shouted Do-yeon, and the rocket teams fired at the grounded ships. By the end of the day, 7 alien ships had been destroyed. The humans had lost some fighters, but they had held their ground. That night, as they celebrated the victory, Ju-woo found Do-yeon alone, looking at the stars. I found something in the ancient texts, she said. They don't just talk about the weapons. They talk about humans. What do you mean? Asked Do-yeon. The texts say that humans were chosen, or maybe made, to use the weapons, to fight the war that was coming. Do-yeon stared at her. Are you saying we were created to fight? Maybe, said Ju-woo. Maybe that's why the weapons make us smarter. They were made for us, or we were made for them. Do-yeon looked up at the sky again, where alien ships still circled, but now kept their distance from the paradox field. Then let's use them, he said. Let's take back our world.